Hey there everyone, Mazarok here. In today's video, I want to go over my recent week 1 thoughts of the new Seasonal Affix Torments, how it affects tanking, how it affects dungeons in general. So let's go from there, really. Before we start, I do want to apologize for a little bit of a lack of content. I was struck with something where my throat just felt like I was like swallowing broken glass for like 5 straight days. So that was super fun to deal with. Now I'm back. Talkative, and let's go. I stream on Twitch every Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I am adding a few more dates in there. Check the schedule down below in the description box, and then we can go from there. So, without further ado, Torments. Good, bad, ugly? Oh. So just a quick recap. To anyone that does not know, the prideful Seasonal Affix is gone, replaced by the Jailer's Lieutenants, who give Torghast powers, anima powers throughout the dungeon. There's 4 lieutenants. Killing one will give you an anima power. They are not random. They are always the same 3 on every single lieutenant. And that's just the basics of it. Now, what this is, so the biggest impact that I'm seeing is really good on the tanks. I'm no longer having to literally work everything around 20%. I'm not having to worry about butt pulls. I can work that off on the fly, and it's not screwing up the entire rotation. So if something does happen, I don't have to worry about that 3% at the end of the dungeon to have the prideful for this Tyran boss, or else this run is dead. You know what I mean? That's gone. That impact of pride is gone. And I love that so much. We are free to route however we want, work things out. There's a lot more freedom given to the tanks here. And it feels so good. It really does. But it does feel a little lackluster. The powers are there. They're nice. They don't do anything special, right? They're not crazy. They add a little bit of DPS. They add a little bit of survivability. It's nice. I enjoy them. It's good. But one thing that I like about this lackluster Seasonal Affix is actually the fact that it lets us get back to playing the dungeons, right? Season 1 Shadowlands was quite literally the Pride show. Every dungeon was, okay, Pride. Okay, Pride. Like, that's all it was. And by the end of it, everybody was just sick of it. This actually lets us get back to playing the dungeon. So really, it's now dungeons as the main focus of what's going on this season with lieutenants. And that's nice. It's not Pride with dungeons, if you kind of get the drift that I'm saying. So that's really nice. I really enjoy that. Now, one thing I've noticed big time, so this is kind of a thoughts and things like that. The powers are all of the same. If you're wondering which powers to pick as a tank, I'm going to link the tank notes description that I used. Now, I tested the powers individually myself, and I have come to the exact same conclusion that tank notes and some other sources have come up with for tanks, which ones you should pick every time. I tested them, and absolutely these are the ones that I enjoy the most. They're, again, set it and forget it, but they are the most helpful all around. So, is what it is. Link description, tank notes, amazing site if you're learning how to tank for everything you need to know. So, we're going to move on from there. One thing that I've noticed, especially once you get into 15 pluses, DPS matters. A DPS job matters before. In Season 1, so with Pride and all of that, the run was entirely reliant on the tank. And I shouldn't say entirely reliant. A lot of the run was reliant on the tank. Routing properly, pulling properly, getting everything right. It was the responsibility was the tank, and everyone else followed along. And as long as everyone followed along, everything was good. This is different now. In 15s and higher, your DPS need to know the mechanics. Everything's harder now, right? Unobjectively, everything got harder and overnight. DPS need to know the mechanics. DPS need to kick. DPS need to stun. DPS need to use their utilities. DPS are no longer over-geared where that can happen. People were like, well, okay, why did the tank die on this one? Like, why did the tank die on this pull? Because nobody kicked the things that you should have always been kicking all last season anyway. Okay, but it matters now. If 4 Withering Discharges get off because the tank only has 1 kick, that's a problem. Like, you need to stun. You can't just out DPS your way out of everything before, as you did before. So I'm noticing that a lot more of the responsibility has shifted back to the DPS, which it should. It is an evenly responsible dungeon. Everybody should have their 20%, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, to make a run work. Everybody should have to work together to make that happen. And the disparity, like the percentage-wise of whose responsibility it was in Pride versus now, is much more dramatic. It was so much more of the responsibility was put on the tank before, and now it's shifted and there's a lot more even. The tank still has a lot of responsibility. There's no questioning that. Just because I say they have less does not mean they have none. People like to swing one way to the other. Everything's either black or white and don't realize that there's an entire gray area in the middle. So everybody has their responsibilities, and right now I'm noticing that DPS absolutely have a lot of responsibilities now. Kicking, stunning, utility, while also doing a lot of damage. Right now, through kind of the quick math that we've seen, all DPS need to be pulling about 5.5k overall. By the end of the dungeon, that is really kind of the bare minimum that they need to succeed to time a 15, where before you could get away with less. You can't get away with less now. I mean, you could, but it has to be made up somewhere. So if someone runs 8k overall, someone else can run less. But that bare minimum benchmark is about 5.5k. And that's just kind of how it has to work. So that is really nice, and then you combine that with the nerfs as well, because you got to remember the auto attacks got nerfed, and there were some dungeon nerfs all around. Some bosses got harder because you don't have Pride for them anymore, and you only have like 1, maybe 2 anima powers for them. But some of them kind of are the same. So it's a little bit more of a new experience. I'm really enjoying it. Personally, I think the first dungeon from Theater of Pain, Theater of Pain right now, I don't know what it is. It's got the tightest timer. I've done all of the dungeons at this point at a fairly okay level, reasonable level, depending on what one it is. TOP is a tight timer. There's no room for screw-ups. Everyone has to play good, and everyone has to pump, and you lose a lot of time on that first boss. Like, a lot of time on the first bosses, yeah, because that's the way it works. So with all of this, what I'm trying to really get at is we're really getting to enjoy the dungeons at this point, because through the responsibility being put from the tank to the DPS, not the responsibility, but some of the responsibility, let's word that correctly, and kind of shifting all of that all around, and it not being the Pride show and the dungeons with the seasonal affix this time, is so much nicer, and you get to really enjoy the dungeons for what they are. Plaguefall is enjoyable. Sanguine Depths is enjoyable. I never thought that just something of removing Pride from Sanguine Depths actually made it more fun. It just kind of is. I've run it a couple times. I'm having fun in that dungeon now. Don't know what it is. Pride's not there. That's the common factor between I didn't enjoy that dungeon before and I enjoy it now. Am I going to enjoy that dungeon at a higher key? We'll wait and find out. That's really how it's going to work there. But so just to recap, all of this, DPS, your job matters more now, a lot more than it did. Not than it did, it's just you have more responsibilities now. Things not getting kicked, that's troublesome. You need to be able to do that. And there's even an anima power that gives you 10% damage boost for kicking stuff. You should be fighting to kick stuff. Like, it's fun. Gain damage boost. Whee! So, that's actually one of the few anima powers I really like for DPS. Promotes healthy play. But also everybody blows their kick on the first possible one to try and gain that DPS boost, and then there's no more kicks left. So, learning how to organize kicks is definitely something that's going to have to start happening in pugs more. Or people saying, I'll wait for my 10% boost until I can get a kick, because it's just how it's going to work sometimes. If everybody kicks the first Rebellious Fist, nobody's got the second. So, problem. But I'm enjoying running the dungeons. I really am. It's a lot of fun. I feel just as tanky now in a 15 that I did 15 now as I did a 15 last season. Even being undergeared, even this or that, the nerfs worked out well in the tank's favor. So if you were a tank struggling in season 1, you're gonna have a lot better time in season 2. It feels kind of, things are hitting around the same, a little bit harder, but not as much as you think, which is really nice. So those are like my thoughts, ramblings, and opinions on really season 1 of the Torment week. The powers are going to get old quickly. They are. But the dungeons are still fun. Shadowlands has quality dungeons. I honestly believe that. They're fun. They're all very different. They feel different. Each one brings something different to the table. They're fun to run. I found BS at BFA, they kind of melded together after a little while. Like, yeah, the scenery was different, but they were all kind of like, here they are. Yeah. So, that's it. Really, if you're enjoying tanking, if you enjoyed tanking Season 1, I think you're going to enjoy tanking a lot more now. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any comments on the new affixes, how the dungeons are feeling, anything like that, leave that down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your opinions on this. Remember, let's keep this a nice positive atmosphere. Let's have a lot of fun. I hope you guys are enjoying Shadowlands as much as I am. Have yourselves a good day.